This right behind me is my Stomp Z3 140cc pit bike, and it is an absolute wreck of a bike. And the reason that it's such a wreck of a bike is this bike was abandoned outside in someone's garden for the best part of 2 whole years. And as you can see, 2 years worth of Welsh weather has not been kind to this bike. It is absolutely trashed. But despite this thing being in one hell of a state, this thing actually runs. Or it did run before I started taking parts off it. When I first picked this thing up and made the first ever video with these bikes, you saw me kick it over, which we'll take a look at now. So as you just saw, this thing was a runner, but the reason it was parked up and abandoned is because of this. Let's take a closer look. Right there is where the rear subframe connects to the main frame. There is normally a bolt that goes through there on both sides and screws in just there, but it is snapped and it looks as if somebody appeared to try and weld it, but that has not worked. So somehow I am going to have to fix that as well as everything else that is wrong with this bike. So to fix this bike, unlike the previous pit bike I did that I bought with this one where I just got it running, cleaned everything up, give it a refresh and got it sold, I need to completely strip this thing down, drill those bolts out for the frame, replace them, and then fix everything else that's wrong with this bike. So because I'm stripping this thing down, it is going to get the best clean it could possibly get, and it's going to get a hell of a lot of new parts and maybe some upgrades to go with it. In terms of new parts, we're going to need a new chain, new sprocket, new front sprocket. We're going to need a new carb because that one leaks fuel like no tomorrow, so we may even get an upgraded one there. Going to need new brake pads, possibly an entire new brake caliper, freshen up on the wheels, freshen up on the engine, new ignition lead, potentially a new exhaust, foot pegs, definitely new grips, and most likely a full set of new plastics. And if there's anything else I can think of along the way, I'll probably just end up doing that too, because I want this thing to look almost as brand new as it possibly can for a bike that has been abandoned outside for 2 whole years. So, with the plan in place, it is time to get cracking. Let's strip it down. Well, all things considered, that strip down went pretty smoothly so far. But, I mean, I did run into a couple of issues. The biggest you saw there was getting this thing out, the rear center pin, or whatever you want to call it. That was, I mean, if you look at it, that's pretty rusty. It was really stuck in there. I did end up having to like put something in and tap it out with a hammer. It doesn't look like I've done too much damage or any damage at all, but that is going to need some serious de-rusting and a good cleanup and some grease before I can even consider putting that back in at any point. But there is an even bigger problem with this strip down. Obviously, I've taken everything off to try and get that engine out, but there are 2 nuts underneath and they are Allen bolts, and I've managed to round them. I can't really show you them because they are right underneath, but they are, one is just here and the same on the other side, and they are so full of grot and grime and everything that when I put the Allen key in there, it literally just rounded. So that has thrown a spanner in the works because I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to get those out now without drilling them out or something. I mean, I'm probably gonna have a go at flipping the bike upside down like you used to do as a kid with your push bikes. See if I can get access to them that way round, but I need to work out a way of supporting that engine because obviously I don't want to put any tension on them or stress, and especially if I do manage to get them out, I do not want the engine to just fall and hit the ground. But we'll come back to that in a minute, because while that only seemed to be 3 or 4 minutes on the video, that has taken me the best part of like 2 to 3 hours. And I have got parts everywhere. Now, I've tried to stay organized. I've put a lot of the nuts and bolts back in where they came out from the bike frame and the engine, etc, etc. But I've still got all of these parts that I now need to put to one side, tidy up, because I'm going to have to come back to this. So now that I'm a bit more tidied up and a bit more organized, I can take a look at this rear subframe in a bit more detail. Now, I don't know if you can see in there, but that is where the bolt or nut or whatever was in there has sheared off. So I will show you it from the other side. That, if it focuses, is I'm going to need to drill a hole in there and hopefully get an extractor in there to pull that out. Is also the same story down here on the frame, but that may even need to have a new thread tapped into it. And it looks to be a similar story on the other side. And that one just there. Then, once I've done all of those, and this is actually fixed up so that it can go back on the bike, I can then obviously clean this up, clean the frame up, and look at putting this back on. But before I put this back on, I'm thinking I might change the color of it. Because if you look at it, I mean, obviously it's a totally separate part, but even if I clean it up, it's still going to be a bit rusty. The paint is going to be pretty crap. So I'm thinking I could maybe get that powder coated. And I'm thinking the bash plate might look nice powder coated in the same color. Now, I think doing that would absolutely help towards changing the entire look of this bike, because I don't just want to fix it. I want to make it completely different. And I think maybe a few painted bits and obviously like grips and everything to match it. I think that would really, really help to change the look of this bike. But before I can do any of that, I still need to work out how to get those last 2 bolts out of the engine, to drop the engine, to get that out, to clean it and tidy it up. And obviously then I can set about doing the frame. So let's jump back to the engine. Okay, so back on the engine, and I have skipped a step here because I flipped the bike upside down to tackle those bolts, and some oil started dripping out. So before I could even set the camera up, I just stuck an impactor on the two nuts, the hex bolts that needed to come out, give them a few taps, and then stuck a socket on the end of the impactor bit, and they turned out nice and fine, and the engine came straight out. But before I did that, I did put the main bolts in to connect it back to the frame so that the engine didn't just drop out on the floor. So I have managed to do that successfully. So let's now take a look where we're at. So we have one 140cc engine that is absolutely filthy, front to back, bottom to top. That needs a damn good cleanup. And we've now got the frame completely separate of the engine and pretty much all of the other parts. And I now need to see if we can extract some nuts from there and the other side of that hole. Okay, that did not go to plan at all. This frame is fighting back. I managed to make a small hole in there, enough to get an extractor in, and then my extractor bit snapped. That snapped clean off, and that is exactly why you do not buy extractor bits and important things like that from Temu. What a stupid idea that was. So because that snapped, and it's supposed to be some sort of hardened material, and I've tried to continue to drill it out with smaller bits, bigger bits, everything, I can't seem to get through there at all. So I'm going to have to get some extremely hard drill bits and maybe borrow a more powerful drill from somewhere. I'm not really sure if that's part of the problem, but I cannot get into any of those nuts and bolts, and that's without even tackling the ones that have been welded so far. So I'm gonna have to come back to that later. Let's crack on with something else for a minute. So the plan now is to start tackling the cleaning of the engine and start cleaning up this big bag of nuts, bolts, bearings and spacers and all the other little bits that go with the bike. So we're gonna get this off, I'm gonna take this off, and I'm gonna take this off, so that I've got as much access to the outside of the engine and all the little nooks and crannies to start getting that clean. But before I do that, I am going to tackle this bag of nuts and bolts. Now, you can see there are some very rusty bits in there, like that frame bit that holds the fairings on. So I'm going to fill this bag now full of evapor rust, and I'm going to give it a bath in the ultrasonic cleaner. I'm going to see just how much of that rust I can get off all of these bits. Use this as the main example. As you can see, that is absolutely covered in rust. So that is the before. So we'll give that a couple of cycles in the ultrasonic cleaner, in the evapor rust, and see how they turn out. Let's crack on with that engine.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare scarring. Hand me a drink cause I think I'm going all in. Get me a shrink who can catch me when I'm falling. Cover up my scars, flip the handlebars, crashing in my car, wake up in a bar. I'll be a superstar, just on my avatar. This world is so bizarre, empty out the reservoir. Yeah, I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost, I'm sick of this place. Don't know how to stop when I'm feeling this way. So I'm taking 6 shots till I'm feeling okay. I think I'm going crazy, don't think I'll get home safe. So I'm taking 6 shots all straight to the face. I'm taking 6 shots, are you coming with me? I'm taking 6 shots, yeah, straight to the face. And I wanna get lost, I'm sick of this place. Don't know how to stop when I'm feeling this way. So I'm taking 6 shots till I'm feeling okay. I think I'm going crazy, don't think I'll get home safe. So I'm taking 6 shots all straight to the face. I'm taking 6 shots, are you coming with me? Sometimes you need to let loose, grab juice, get goose, tattoos, taboos, get screwed. Loosen up, buttercup, all those hate comments will never make you feel enough. We're all adequate graduates, heart full of calluses, but we know calculus. Damn, ain't that fabulous? Can't wait to apply all those mathematicus. But we can't get a job that pays us enough. I'm about to pop off. Fuck you, you're lost. We all know that we never really want a boss. So I'ma do what I want to. Something I can't.
So a lot of scrubbing, a lot of Dremelin, and it's starting to look better, but there is still one hell of a long way to go, especially to get all the crust and rust and dust off between those air fins, because it is incredibly hard to get all the bits right down into the nooks and crannies to get that off. I probably should have jet washed the engine while it was on the bike, but I still do not have my jet wash set up down the unit. Housing there is starting to look good. The rest of it is still an absolute trash. So while I make slow progress on the engine, it's time to check the ultrasonic cleaner because it's been through two 30-minute cycles at 65 degrees, vibrating away with that evapor rust. So let's see how the parts are looking. And that is looking rather brown. Shiny, maybe. So I did just have a quick peek inside the bag. I didn't have my tripod in here to film it, but that main piece is still quite rusty, so you can leave parts in evapor rust for a day, 2 days or whatever. So I am just going to leave them sitting in that bag of evapor rust for probably another couple of days. And I say a couple of days because I've now got work for the next couple of days, so I probably won't get down here to crack on with any more bits for the time being. So although I'm making steady progress, overall some things are not really going to plan. Obviously I was hoping that I'd be able to sort that frame out and end the video there with the frame ready to be cleaned down and painted, and obviously the engine out and ready to be cleaned. Now, while I have accomplished half of that, the engine is out and it's ready to be cleaned, the frame is not fixed and that's going to need a lot more looking into. I may have to get it welded, or I may still have a chance at drilling those bolts out, but I don't have the tools here right now, this minute, to get that done. So for the time being, I'm going to have to end that here for part 1 of Project Stomp. I will pick this back up next week, where hopefully I'm managing to drill out those bolts or get it welded or something so I can get it cleaned and start getting that frame painted. So until next week, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you hit that thumbs up button. If you liked it enough to see what comes next for the Stomp, then make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you do not miss anything that's left to come with it. And until then, thank you so much for watching.